Also, you're based out of India.
Yeah.
1:30. Yeah, funny time zone with the point half of an hour. So
Yeah. It's strange. I said 1:30. Yeah, I realize it right now.
we can
Right.
hear is much closer, Smithy. So
Yeah. All right. So we have people joining in. We're gonna give it just 1 minute before we begin.
are you recording this? Oh, so you are, and then you'll be posting this on YouTube. Okay, so I can share as well after.
Yes, it'll be posted on YouTube, on our social feeds, and it will also be mailed to all of the registrants.
All right, perfect, wonderful.
Awesome. So I'm going to start. Welcome everyone for joining today. Thank you attendees, thank you panelists for taking out 1 hour out of your precious Friday evening to spend with us and discuss employee engagement and employee experience. So my name is Smriti. I'm one of the founders of Advantage Club. For those of you who don't know about Advantage Club, we're an employee engagement and rewards and recognition platform. And we usually do these sessions of knowledge, sharing among different people of the HR community. We invite eminent speakers who are, on top of their game at their companies and who have implemented wonderful employee engagement related programs to impart knowledge and wisdom and also do some information sharing with each other. Just to add, the session today will be recorded. It will be available on our YouTube channels. We will also email the session recording to all of the registrants of this session itself. With that note, let me welcome the wonderful speakers I have on panel today. So starting off with the lovely lady on our panel, Arlene. So Arlene is the Chief People and Customer Officer of Sprout Solutions. And we have Eric, who, Eric is primarily, I'm sorry, I think, just 1 second, let me pull the, yeah, he's
You
the
can do
Global
it,
Vice
Smithy.
President of People Experience. I don't want to mess up designation, but he's the Global Vice President of People Experience at TOA Global. Welcome, Arlene. Welcome, Eric, to this wonderful session. And I'm really excited to have you here. We'd love to have a quick round of introduction. So we'll start with Arlene. If you could just give us a little bit of overview about yourself, your journey, and then we'll ask Eric to do the same.
Okay, so ladies first. So hi everyone and welcome to the seminar. Glad that you're here with us today. So my name is Arlene. I am Sprout's Chief People and Customer Officer. I know that's a pretty long title, but don't worry, it only means one thing. I'm always dealing with people, from employees to clients. So that's basically it in a nutshell. So I have overall maybe around 15 years of experience in the industry, and my specialization in HR is recruitment, employee satisfaction, benefits, and rewards and recognition. I'm also a lawyer and a certified data protection officer and an ISO audit lead. So I hope you learn a lot from me today, and I hope you'd ask more questions so that we can all learn from each other. Because normally it's not only the participants who learn from the event, it's also us, the speakers.
Thank you and welcome, Arlene, to this power-packed session. Eric, if you could please give us a quick introduction about yourself and your
Sure, it's definitely a pleasure, and definitely dovetailing on what Arlene mentioned, it's really humbling as well. As same time, it's a great privilege to be speaking in front of our audience, and it has been one of my personal passion to be connected with our HR industry in the Philippines. It has been one of my vocation as well to share whatever we can. I guess what mentioned by Arlene, it's really more of a conversation because no one person has a monopoly of truth and best practice. It's really we're really after an ongoing transformation of practices, and we can only transform as we join together, exchange ideas, and grow together as one community. And with that, that's also my aspiration for this session, beyond myself, but really more of really building the foundations and beyond of the HR practice in the Philippines. So going back to myself, Eric Riego de Dios is my name. Riego de Dios is my surname, and Eric is my first name. Sometimes people confuse my name because of its length, and they sometimes think that Riego is actually my second name. So sometimes they call me Riego, but Riego de Dios is my full surname, and Eric is my first name. But funny thing, it has a good sort of a connotation, meaning Eric in Nordic is always associated with nobility or prince or kings. And then Riego de Dios, obviously Spanish, it means the waterway of God. So if you put two together, it means the prince or the king of the waterway of God. So somehow it gives me a lot of pressure to live up to that name, and hopefully also to water any parched land and contribute to life as it nourishes, as it flows through deserts. So that's a bit of an introduction, not necessarily related to my profession, but hopefully from a personality perspective, I'm able to put some thoughts and ideas there.
Oh, wow, that's an amazing introduction, and I'm gonna use this in my introductions in the future. So yeah, thank you, King of God of Water, for joining us today. All right, so I think we have a lot of attendees who've joined in, and I think this is also the perfect time to start. So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Just a little bit of context on our topic today. Our topic is warm up for a new world of employee experience. So I just wanted to set a little bit of context before we start giving questions to the panelists. So how is employee experience different from employee engagement? So basically, a lot of times people confuse both the terms, but they're a little different. Engagement is the level of effort and participation employees put forth for the work they do. They are enthusiastic about the job they perform, they do their best, and they look for ways to improve and innovate. Even the most engaged employee may not have a positive employee experience. While they may be engaged in the work they do, these employees are often looking for a job where they'll be more appreciated and they have a higher sense of pride in the company that employs them. Losing top talent like that can be devastating to the business and its bottom line. So what we're going to do is we're going to decode employee experience today, and we're going to ask a lot of questions to the wonderful panelists who we have here. I will also be launching a couple of polls in the middle of the session. So I request all of the attendees to please respond to the polls so that we can collect that information around how the industry is thinking about the answers to these questions. With that, let me start with the first question. And ladies first, I will start with the first question through Arlene. So Arlene, how do you take an employee-centric design to build a positive employee experience?
Okay, well, for me, it's two things. The first is caring personally, and second is including the people in the process. What do you mean by caring personally? Caring personally means that when you're building a product or when you have a system in place, you have to think about them at first hand. So let's say from on our end at Sprout, from the moment they log into the computer, we actually are able to figure out what the employees are thinking through a mood tracker. So this mood tracker generally has one question, and that question is, how are you feeling today? So before they log in, they get asked that question, how are you feeling today? And the answers could be, oh, I'm depressed, I'm sick, I'm unmotivated, I'm happy, I'm just so. And if their answers are they are depressed or they don't feel well, then HR would automatically call them and ask if they need help. If they need help, maybe professional help, then they get turned over to our resident psychologist. And with this, our employees' feedback is actually that they feel that we genuinely care for them and their welfare. And so it bolsters positive employee experience. So that's just one example on how you can care personally and having that employee-centric design within the organization. I guess another thing, other than the caring personally, is really including the people in the process. And what do I mean by that? When you are thinking of a project, or when you have an HR policy, or actually a group work that you will do as an organization, when you're building your values, or when you're building your mission, your vision, your programs in the company, you must include everyone in the process. So that means even rank and file should have a voice in that policy. So for instance, we developed a product and it's called Sprout Wellness. And this Sprout Wellness is basically a response to the government's mandate to have like a system, or to have a unified system that would cater to the emotional and mental health of the employees. So what we did there is we asked our employees through a survey, and also our clients, what do they want in a wellness program. And so, after, a bunch of FGDs and a bunch of questions, we were able to figure out that, oh, these are the top programs that the employees need as of the moment. So in that survey, we figured out, oh, they need yoga sessions because, they need to be relaxed at all times. And these are the time slots that we should have yoga sessions for employees. And then, we also figured out, oh, they need meditation sessions and yoga sessions. And then there's also, oh, these people or these employees need a one-on-one consultation with psychologists. They don't need like regular people. They need experts, especially now in the pandemic. And so, these were crafted not by us. It was crafted by the employees themselves, by our client themselves. And so, if you include people in the process, the product can never go wrong, and you would always have that employee-centric design that would bolster positive employee experience.
And that's amazing. And you put forth a very important point, which is around mental wellness, because that's something I think post-pandemic all organizations have become very aware of. That besides the general well-being and physical fitness of an employee, it is also important to also care about their mental well-being. And more
Exactly.
organizations have been, have started to take steps towards it to drive a higher mental well-being among employees in their organization. So with that, I move to my next question to
Yeah,
Eric.
Smithy,
Um,
if I may, I
yeah,
guess that's a very important question, and I think what Arlene already shared with our audience has been very valuable. And what I gathered from what Arlene actually shared is that there is at the heart of their organization at Sprout, human centricity is very important. And as you know, there has been some buzzwords about design thinking, and that's essentially as well one of the things that is important nowadays, that when you design a product, you design it based on a lot of empathy. And how do you do that? Because how do you know that it will work? Because it's essentially designed for the end users. And that's why perhaps Arlene also mentioned that when we design things and when we design products, we actually involve and co-design it with the end users in mind. And in her case, the employees or the rank and files who will be using those products are essentially a part and parcel of the co-solutioning and co-designing of those products. This is also what we will see in TOA as well, because in the heart of the business of TOA is human centricity. Actually, our business is all about human beings, and that's why it's the core of our business. And we just actually use the lens of commercial pragmatism or viability. So that's the only filter, but the heart and the core of it would essentially be the whole human verse of it all. It's all about human beings, it's all about the talent, it's all about the emotions, feelings, and that's why empathy, sympathy, and holistic approach from a human verse perspective, that's how TOA is approaching it, and enveloping it would be your commercial pragmatism's lens. So that's how we actually try to see um, centricity or empathy and even design thinking at play.
that's a very fair point, and you've also kind of semi-answered my next question. But
See, I'm a telepath, Smithy.
yeah, you have
Very
like,
on point, Eric.
yeah. See, you predicted my next question. So my next question was, anyways, around how do you define employee experience at your organization, and why does it matter? And you're right around there needs to be eccentricity around human centricity, probably. So if you'd like to add on to that around how you've defined it at TOA, and why does this really matter at the end of the day?
It does matter a lot, Smithy. And that question is really, I think, very important for us to tackle, because your definition of human experience or employee experience or people experience at that would really define how you approach a problem, see a problem, and also how you solution it and the next decision points and actions that you will make. At TOA, and probably much like any other companies who value their values and keep them close to heart, we define all of our actions and our perspective based on our values. And we do have four wonderful values. The first one is bringing the wow, meaning you have to be excellent and you have to make sure that the standards and the quality that you're delivering is at par with the industry, if not better. Also is being awesome as well. And awesomeness is all about teamwork, collaboration, and working together. And it's all about collective brilliance. The third one is dreaming big and achieving more. And with that, you also have the components of trying to achieve and become even better. And when you become even better, it entails a lot of transformation and change. And it's very important for us because given the volatile environment, you really have to adapt and change and transform at that. And then the last but not the least is keeping it real. So it's all about making sure that there is feedback you give and receive. And it's all about integrity as well, because you have to keep it real. You have to be very authentic. What you see is what you get, and what you say you actually deliver. So all of those values come into play for us to be guided in how we want people to experience TOA. Because as you mentioned, its engagement might be how, because regardless of what they experience, people would have a natural tendency of engagement. So for example, Smithy, regardless of what companies do, some people are just performers. They will perform regardless of the environment because they are just performers. So if you are able to create the kind of environment and the kind of experience because you live and breathe that experience, and in fact, that's one of the things why I was attracted to this role. When they offered me the title of Global Vice President for People Experience, it sort of opened up a lot of possibilities for me because it's a great arena, it's a great platform to use so that you can experiment, touch the hearts of people, impact them, because this is how you or the company is felt by the employees. So that is what is important, how you are experienced and how you provide that kind of experience. So for us, experience is really defined by our values, because we have to anchor it in something that is ongoing, and given the volatile environment, it always has to be constant, and those are the constant things that are happening to us. And more so, it also defines the way that how we will act. So it's all about values and the principles. So that's how we define experience for us in TOA.
And that's a very noble thought as well, that um, it's not just a role which is impacting you as a person. It is a role which is impacting probably thousands of people in the organization, and having an opportunity to make a significant contribution in that is a big deal in itself. Yeah. So great. Thank you for that. And with this, I'm launching my first poll. The question for the poll is, what impact does a good employee experience have in your organization? I would request participants to please respond to the poll, share your ideas and your thought processes on what you think is the impact that a good employee experience has in your organization. While people are responding to that poll, I will move on to my next question to Arlene. So, Arlene, what should be the first step towards a positive employee experience that adds maximum value to the organization and the employee?
Okay, well, the first step is really understanding the needs of your employees. And, like in my case, I feel that it's work-life integration, especially now that we're in the pandemic. So, there's a big difference between work-life integration and work-life balance. For me, work-life integration is the trend to go. So, because for me, you do not stop being a mother or a sibling or a child to your parent the moment you start working. As a matter of fact, the primary motivation of people is so they can have a life outside the organization. It's so they can earn a living and be happy with their loved ones. Because people do not want to live to work. People want to work to live. And if this concept is ingrained in the minds of the managers, then we can have a better chance of having a positive work environment. And, like another thing would really be understanding the needs. So, one of the needs of employees right now is financial because of the pandemic, naturally. And so, our organization has developed Instacash, and it's one of our products whose goal is to actually support employees' financial wellness so they can have access to emergency funds in a snap of a finger, like 2 seconds, they have it on their bank account. And, with Instacash, we were able to help thousands of people already, from employees to clients. And one example I could give is the feedback that we got thanking us for actually saving the life of her mother with the Instacash feature that we have. And the good thing about it is that you're not only helping the employee, because you're also helping the organization, because studies have shown that this kind of benefit actually leads to lower employee turnover by 20%. It raises productivity by 14%, and it increases employee engagement and loyalty. So, employee experience definitely will be high if this benefit could be given.
Yeah, and that's a very fair point, and kudos to you for actually helping people personally along with a professional manner. And you're right, work life integration is something which is a really important point which organizations need to look at, because um, I know we all talk about work life balance, but the truth is that employees spend at least 50% of their lives in their office. So it is also, as an organization, our responsibility to make the 50% of their life comfortable for them. So with that note,
I thought it's 80%, Smithy.
oh, is
Sorry.
it?
I have the wrong number.
I know. In the Philippines, it's definitely 80%. People work like crazy there. So all right, so I'm ending our first poll, and we have actually very close call between all three. So the winner is employee productivity, followed by employee engagement, and followed by employee retention, which is interesting because I thought retention would be on the top, but
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting.
But I really thought employee productivity will be number one. Second will be retention. Third will be engagement.
Wow, yeah.
Well, I had engagement first, so
Oh,
we have
really?
different predictions.
Okay.
Right. So, moving on to the next question for Eric. So, Eric, we all talk about employee recognition and appreciation, but do you think that employee recognition is a good way to improve employee experience? And have you implemented any form of recognition in your organization?
I thought, Smithy, this is a trick question. How can I say no? But okay. But having said that, Smithy, yes, of course. In my 25 years of history in the HR world, I think recognition played an important part in terms of really recognizing, the kind of behavior or achievements that are fully aligned with your values and what you aspire for as an organization. So I think that's very important, just to underscore the statements and the values and the whole DNA of any organization at that. But I think what is important really now is also the science of the times, being able to read pretty well what is needed, what is out there, and what is actually being close to your constituents. So agility in terms of designing and even co-designing with your employees what would work for them is very vital nowadays. So gone are the days that we just have this and live with this forever. right? So we have to adapt, we have to change, we have to transform depending on the demographics of our organization, depending on the science of the times, depending on the need. For example, it's great that Arlene actually mentioned as well that they have introduced new products, new benefits, depending on the needs of and the science of the times. So I think what Arlene did is exactly what should be happening nowadays. It's all about learning, it's all about transformation, it's all about agility. So to answer your question, of course, definitely recognition, incentive should always be there because it guides us on the right behavior. In as much as we also sort of castigate or punish those that are not aligned with the behaviors that we want in an organization. So it goes both ways. Of course, the carrot and the stick, right? But having said that, it should not always be a carrot and a stick. It could sometimes be a donut and a baton, right? So it depends on the science of the times, the changing landscape, the kind of demographics that you have. And if you pay close attention to because at the end of the day, your employees are your main clients from an HR standpoint. If you pay close attention to your clients and you build that intimacy, and Arlene also mentioned FGDs, and you have to do that on a regular basis so that you know the pulse of the people. Either you do a survey, you do focus group discussions, even a virtual focus group discussions. As long you have that connection, that open line of communication, I think you won't go wrong because you are attuned with the needs, and then you can flex immediately if you see that there are changing needs of your organization. So I think that's the key there: agility, customer intimacy from an employee perspective, and also being swift in changing, right? Because sometimes, okay, I already know what is needed, but it took you so long to actually implement that. So for
Agree.
example, in the Odette typhoon, where you needed more of a financial assistance during those times, right? Especially for your Cebu constituents. If you gave that, there's a big difference between giving that in a span of a week or in a span of a month. So again, speed and agility come into play because it actually impacts the experience.
Yeah, and that's amazing, because you know, irrespective of whatever scenarios happen, whatever natural calamities come in, if as an organization you have your employees back, then it not only impacts them, it also impacts their families, right? So you also indirectly get the familial support and like a thumbs up that you're working for a great organization. Plus you're extending your kind of a work family to the families of those people as well. So it really helps in driving all of these 3 pointers which we had, productivity, engagement, and retention for all of the employees. So we have 2 questions on the chat, and also for the other attendees, please start posting questions in the chat if you have any. We will answer them in real time in the session itself. So the first question, and any one of you could take that, is what would be the top critical metrics to measure employee experience in this hybrid work culture?
Lee, since you have given all of the statistics before, would you like to take the first stab?
Okay, so the question is, what are the statistics that would, again, sorry, what are the important?
Yeah, the top critical metrics to measure employee experience in this hybrid work culture.
Okay, well, for me, there's top two. First is employee satisfaction, and the second is employee retention. And those two go hand in hand. Like, how do you measure employee satisfaction? Like, as a matter of fact, we did a study. We have a white paper on the future of work, which is hybrid. And in that study, so there's 8,194 employees. And out of the 8,194 employees in that survey, 7,470 are on hybrid or remote work. And in that study, it was found out that the HR foresee the future of work as remote or hybrid, and employees actually prefer this kind of setup. And the main reason is because of collaboration, team building, and human connection. And so emotional and mental well-being are front and center, and that constitutes employee satisfaction. So for them, if you're gonna have better work-life integration, if you're gonna have better mental health, if you're gonna have better physical health, if there's productivity gains, lower attrition, cost savings, and freedom to hire from anywhere in the world, then they will stay with the company. So for me, those two are the key metrics. So that's employee retention and employee satisfaction or happiness.
Right. So I would definitely agree, because those two metrics would always have to be in that roster of your dashboard, so to speak, when it comes to people experience. But again, let me also put into context again the timing and as well the immediacy of it all. So for example, there are also solutions, and probably Sprout is one of them, where you actually can just plug in whatever you're feeling on that day, right, or in that particular moment. And then so some sentiment analytics there, so immediately a boss who can gather all together all of the input of his team members would immediately understand whether that's going to the red or to the green, meaning green, high satisfaction or greater happiness, or red, meaning some people are down or what, for whatever reason. So we can immediately act and go to those, because those small moments that matter, if captured correctly, will be able to turn, and move the needle, turn it around or move the needle. So there are elements of immediacy. So, there are applications like that. So we can leverage on that as well. You can also do the more longitudinal way of, for example, some organizations do it on like ENPS, which is what you apply for employee satisfaction in other organizations. That's what we use. And we do it on a quarterly basis as well. So that is in a way more of engagement / satisfaction, which is somehow reflection of experience. Right now, there's no direct correlation between any metric and experience, but all of these somehow would point us to experience, because it's a very big kind of a universe for us to measure. But we have indicators, and ENPS is one of them. So you can go from very short, right in that very moment. So for example, if you launch something, if you have a launch, or if you have just created one event, right after that, what sentiment did you get? So immediately capture that. And also you also have that long-term perspective, so you can see also the stability of all of those movements in terms of sentiment. So leverage both ends, but I think you'll hit your sweet spot. At the end of the day, if you do your overall annual analysis, you get a lot of insights and information. So there's a lot, and unfortunately, there is no one good measure that would really give us the overall employee experience. But what Arlene mentioned, and the sentiment analytics plus the longitudinal ENPS are some of the good metrics to follow and use in your dashboards.
Yeah, thank you both of you for that. And I have another question on the chat, which is, what can you say about great resignation and employee termination against the pandemic?
Okay, well, for me, the great resignation is here. And that's why I always say, the only thing that's constant in the world is change. And so we need to adapt to the change. Otherwise, we'd be left behind, or will be part of that great resignation. The secret here is to really prepare. And, how to prepare is for HR to really shift their focus to employee experience. So, HR has been traditionally linked to compliance and the mundane tasks, like let's say payroll or timekeeping, attendance monitoring. But now it evolved. And if I may borrow a line from Maslow, so the hierarchy of needs of Maslow, the pyramid. So at the bottom of the pyramid is the physiological needs. And the physiological needs are really the basic needs of man, like let's say food or shelter. If you translate that in HR parlance, that's really your timekeeping, attendance, and payroll. And then on top of the pyramid is really the self-actualization, where you have the need to feel, let's say, a sense of belongingness or love. And this would translate to, in the HR parlance, the HR wellness or benefits or rewards and recognition. So, we need to change. We need to evolve. As a matter of fact, I dare say that HR is dead. I dare say that people experience is the new future. So, if you're an HR professional, maybe it's time for you to shift that mindset that you're no longer HR professionals, you're people experience professionals. Because at the end of the day, we can't focus merely on the functional side of HR. We need to focus on the emotional side of HR. And with the pandemic and with the great resignation going, one common thing is common in our studies. The reason for the great resignation is the inability for companies to evolve, inability for the companies to change. And that's what people want nowadays, most especially millennials. They want the change, and we need to adapt to the change. And with that change, let's not forget what HR stands for. The H in HR, that is human, right? So we need to focus on people experience rather than the traditional kind of HR, which is just the basics. We need to evolve, we need to grow.
A lot of takeaway from Attorney Arlene, essentially. And first, my first takeaway is thank you for validating my role as a vice president for people
No, I just
experience.
validated you.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you so much. I knew that I was in the right role, that I am in the right role, especially now. Thank you for that. And also thank you for also mentioning the organization's ability or aspiration to transform. And that's why I'm also happy that at TOA Global, our third value is dream big and achieve more. It's all about really trying to transcend and transform, and that's what we are all about as well. And the last one, I think, going to the great resignation, you're right, it's here, it's now. And funny, in the pandemic scenario where people would try to cling to their roles, people can just give up even without an option of transferring to a new organization, maybe because they're trying to find new meaning. And going to my third point, which is a bit counterintuitive to what Arlene mentioned, but not necessarily contrary, but perhaps it's a different point of view now. Some of us would sometimes forgo physical security, your food, your shelter. But if you don't have that pinnacle of self-actualization and purpose, and maybe that's why they're ready. I will be leaving this organization because this is no longer aligned with my purpose, with my mission in life. With the very finite time that I have in this world, I'm already feeling sore throat and fever. I have to find meaning in my life. That's why I'm ready to let go of this organization, because I'm not being true to myself. I'm not seeing my full potential here. So even if I go hungry for a couple of months trying to find myself and trying to find a real new job that would give meaning and purpose, then I think that's one of the one reasons for that great resignation, because people, especially the millennials, they want to see that there is purpose and their mission is accomplished in organization because of that full alignment. So that's also great, because you have to go beyond the monetary, and of course that those are needed. But at the end of the day, it might necessarily sustain you, especially in these times of the pandemic, where man's search for meaning is pivotal.
Yeah, very fair point there. And since we're talking about employee experience, our next question is fun. So our next question is, what if you're being complimented by your boss saying that you did a good job, but it turns out that you've been reported that you're not doing the right job, poor performance? Well, how do you handle such situations?
That's for a lawyer to respond to, I guess.
I guess so. I guess that question is for me. So I would well, it really depends on the culture of the company, but for us, we have a culture of radical candor, and radical candor means saying it as it is, but because you care for the person, saying it as it is because you care for the person personally. So for me, we the employee can just be radically candid with the boss, that, hey boss, you gave me this comment, and then but this is what's written in my performance evaluation. Legally speaking, what's written is what's legally binding. And so if there's a confusion or disagreement between the verbal and the written, it would always be the written that would be binding. And so my advice for this person is to talk to the boss. And in any performance evaluation, there's always the manager evaluation and the employee evaluation, and you can always contest the performance evaluation that's given to you. And let's say your boss says that, hey, like this is what I really thought about you. Maybe during the time I thought that you were great, but now you're not doing great. Then maybe you can ask for a 360 feedback from other people, because maybe the issue is really with you, or maybe not, right? But you have other ways of verifying it. You can do peer-to-peer feedback. You can ask for peer-to-peer feedback. That is, you can do a 360 as well on your boss, like on how he is as a manager. And if things don't go well, definitely go to your HR, ask for help in addressing the matter, because I firmly believe that all things could come to fruition with a good conversation. So that's how I would approach it.
It's great because Arlene mentioned there is an element of radical candor, and it's very aligned as well with the fourth value of Doa, which is keeping it real. At the end of the day, it's not just all about courageous conversations, but it's really, but why do you want to be real to this person? You have to understand that because it also depends on the culture, as mentioned by Arlene. You want to be radically candor to this person because you care for this person, because you want this person to be put back on track, for example, and to work and be optimal. So I guess it also goes both ways because sometimes radical candidness is a privilege of the leaders, which is it should not be.
Should
As
not
mentioned
be.
by
Yeah.
Arlene, you have the same or equal right to radical candidness, right? And you can also ask directly and be candid as well. And again, go back. Why are you asking these questions? You're asking these questions because you want also to perform well for the team, for your boss. So you have to put really it into good context. So again, driven by your culture and how this culture is being lived and being brought to life by the individuals in your organization. So we have our work cut out for us, Arlene, because we have to drive that culture in order to enable the experience that we want to have for our employees.
Exactly. Yeah, so I have the right word. Challenge directly, care personally. It was at the tip of my tongue earlier.
Great, thank you. And I have such amazing questions on the chat. I really want to spend some time doing those first. So the next one is, how can you make an employee be engaged when obviously they are disengaged already? This is really interesting. Like if they're not following instructions anymore, etc., where can the employer start?
Okay, well, I guess it starts with a conversation. Like it always starts with what I normally do when I consult with different companies, because I also consult for different companies, and when I do that, I'm a third person coming in, and when I'm looking at it from a third person, the problem has always been lack of communication. Like the HR, or let's say the managers, would always say that, hey, these people are disengaged, without actually going through the root cause of the problem. So like the first question to ask is, why are they disengaged? And so you can do it through a survey. You can do it through a focus group discussion. Like my suggestion is departmental. Like a person, maybe an HR professional, would talk to the department. Okay, what are your issues? Why are you feeling disengaged? And then when you get all the issues, you try to filter it out, and you try to pinpoint the top two or top three, and then you address it head on. So when you're able to address those, I assure you, if you're able to address even just one, two, or three top problems for disengagement, there will be a significant increase in your employee satisfaction on the next quarter. So I suggest you do a project on it, maybe like a quarter project, top three causes of disengagement, and then let's say, for instance, and I'm speaking based from experience on a client. Top three reason for disengagement is my manager is super bossy. I don't want to work with her. So that has been the problem. And so when it came to the management's attention, to the HR's attention, like I asked I asked the manager, like sometimes if the flower does not bloom, you don't change the flower, you change the environment. So maybe the problem is not with the disengaged employees. Maybe the problem is the environment. So you change the environment. Maybe in my example earlier, maybe the flower is not blooming because it doesn't have enough sun, or it doesn't have enough rain, or maybe the caretaker is negligent, or maybe the caretaker just doesn't care. So like, figure that out. What is that wrong environment for that employee? And so once you figure that out, have an action item for it. So that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, and that's a very fair point. So I remember an example. I'm not going to name the company, but I know one of the companies which was like earlier a smaller startup and then became like a big company overnight, and because they raised a lot of funds and then they had like thousands of employees. They eventually, because they kind of burst up in terms of their scale, in terms of their numbers, they were unable to manage the culture. So there was a lot of disengagement and there was a lot of dissatisfaction among employees. So I remember it was something which was internal in the startup community, but they hired one person whose job was to just figure out what is causing the employees to be disengaged, what is causing all of this politics in the organization. So that person was hired for a year, just for a year, to only solve this problem. So, fixing culture is probably one of the highest priorities of any organization, and people should give heed to all of that. So, yeah, Eric, would you like to add anything to that before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, but we can move on to the next question, Smithy.
Okay. The next question is for you. Can you share some new people experience programs?
It's specifically for me. Good luck with the broadcasting my title as People Experience Vice President. So for us, really, it really starts. So let me just step back, because people experience, I think, actually is seen in the lens of the founders and the executives. So let me just have that context as well. So TOA Global is founded by a person named Nick Sinclair, and this person actually, quite astonishingly, is someone who is not actually doing business for profit, believe you me. So what he's doing is really trying to see a person and be seeing the person beyond his current potential, because and probably you already know the growth mindset. We see people beyond their potential and how they can even grow in an organization, and beyond that we also see the person not just as an individual but a vital part of a family. And being a vital part of a family, that person is also a part of a community, and that community actually builds a whole nation. So I'm happy that with the person of Nick Sinclair founding TOA Global, I saw that there is a greater a greater sense in seeing an individual. And that's why it's important how we take care of the experience of this person, because this person is a person supporting a family, is a vital part of a community, and could be an agent for nation building. So I guess from that perspective, we see a lot of potential in taking care of just one person, because it could have a ripple effect on you. And that's why I'm also surprised that whatever profit he has, he actually puts it back to the organization and actually built right now an institute for learning. And at TOA Global, we actually invest in our people without training bonds, to make sure that they are equipped for their practice, and they can even practice their profession in North America, in Australia, and New Zealand. And that's something that we cannot take away, and that's without any bonds. So it's the kind of investment that you give to your people, and regardless whether they stay, and hopefully they do stay in TOA Global, but if ever they leave, they bring it with them. And that's one of the legacies as well that we want that person to take. So that is the perfect sense of employee experience. I'm not answering you directly, because we might confine and our audience might be looking for answers like, okay, we just created this, we have given this, or we have created that. But I guess all of these experiences or all of these programs would be rooted from the core value of the DNA of your organization. So if you see the person as a pivotal wealth of the organization, and you're not afraid to invest on that person, regardless whether that person stays, and leave something that's really lasting, like education, something that he can take whether or not he stays in TOA. I think, what whatever programs that you create, because at the end of the day, if the person really knows that you care for him deeply and personally, I think any other employee program or employee experience program would just be an add-on or a cherry on top. I think that sincerity, the authenticity of the organization should really shine through. And whatever programs that you have, it could just be a fad, because next year it might be a new one, right? For example, right now, financial assistance during the pandemic, it's the fad because it's the thing, it's the one that is relevant. We talked about agility, right? For next year, it might be different, right? It could be more of, holidays and stuff, because we can already travel. So yeah, it depends. But the heart and at the core of it all, why is the company doing that? And that is the source of all of the experience that we wanted to create for each and every employee in TOA. I did not answer it directly, but I know at the heart of the people listening, they somehow would get it.
Yeah, and you're right. These decisions, they keep changing over time. So what is relevant to the organization today might not be relevant tomorrow. But at the end of the day, all of your programs should be designed with a specific goal in mind, and that could be related to the company's cultural values, or it could be related to the objectives or the business. But there has to be a reason why you're doing it, and that's why one size does not definitely fit all. So thank you for that. And with that note, let me launch my second poll, which is, do you use technology to assess the employee experience in your organization? So attendees would request you to please answer that question. We'd love to see how many are using technology today. And since we're talking about technology, my next question is to Arlene around, how should companies define the right employee experience partner?
Okay, this is a very interesting question because there will be a lot to be mentioned, but definitely it must be a fit in the organization, because like there will never be a perfect partner. There will only be a fit partner. Fit meaning it must be aligned with the culture, values, mission, vision, programs of the company, and its partner should you should ask this question: is the partner holistic enough to cover all employee experience aspects? Does it have ATS, PMS, engagement, rewards and recognition, pulse, analytics? Are they adaptable to change? Will will they be able to shift new paradigms with the future of work? Do they have the future of work in mind? So, are they a people platform? Are they traditional? Are they modern? Can they adapt? So those are some of the things that you should question before finding the right employee experience partner. One example would really be like flexible benefits. Not a lot of people have that, and flexible benefit basically is a very new topic in the Philippines, but because of the pandemic and because of the changes, it has become a trend. So like right now, people want health insurance, life insurance, or maybe childcare, and with flexible benefits, people can customize their own packages. Another thing would be, because it's so super prevalent now in all the world, is really health. So does the provider have that service available? Thinking about mental health, not only mental health, but also emotional health and physical health of the employees. So if you're able to answer yes to these questions, then you have found the right partner.
Yeah, perfect. And with that, I'm ending my second poll. Yeah, 83% of the respondees do use technology to assess the employee experience, and that's really interesting. And I'm also launching my third poll in the same time. Do you conduct surveys at every step of your employee life cycle? So please answer that honestly if you do or you don't, so that we know how many people are actually uh, doing the surveys and feedbacks mechanism today. So back to you, Eric. What drives employee engagement or employee experience at TOA? And I know launching it is one thing, or deciding on launching something related to employee experience is one thing, but driving it and really running it is another. So would love to hear your thoughts around that.
Toa, again, as mentioned, going back to the core of it, it's always human centricity, and then also you working through the lens of commercial pragmatism. So at the heart of it all, we always want to make sure that we touch the right nerves, right, in terms of human centricity. And of course, we can always give them a jet plane or what, but of course, it has to be at the lens of what is viable commercially or the affordability of it all, right? So here it's really not about rocket science, Smithy and Arlene. And maybe one example of that is really how do you make, for example, leadership seen and felt and actually sort of felt internally. So what we did is trying to make sure that there is always a presence that we are felt during moments that matter. And for example, in Odette, even if in Typhoon Odette, it happened in Cebu. Most of our leaders are in largely in Australia, and some of our leaders are here in the Philippines, essentially, and one is myself. So, like Gemma, who is our vice president for the Philippines, she had to fly, and she flew to Cebu just to make sure that she will personally bring our care packages to our employees. So it does create a big difference between you just sending, giving, okay, messenger, just give this to the list of people affected by the typhoon, right? Versus your head of the Philippine operations going to each and every impacted employee and personally handing that care package. In a similar fashion, because of the pandemic, and it's always like this, right? You sometimes when you recognize tenure, service awards or loyalty awards, 5 years, 10 years, what have you just send them, a fancy box of hams and cold cuts or grapes or what have you, chocolates, even champagnes, right? And even a fancy trophy and a gift cash or whatever, right? So you have that usually. But again, the difference of Eric, the HR person or the people, I get myself corrected already, the people experience person handing that box to a 5-year employee awardee creates that difference. And I guess those small difference, those small nuances, we should not forget about them. We should not undermine the impact of those to the employees. And you're right, technology is there because it helps us becoming real time, becoming immediate, becoming almost omnipresent. But in those few moments where you can really make a difference and make your presence felt physically, where everything else is virtually, that creates a lot of difference. And that's the kind of experience, leadership seen and felt. That's what we would like to have in TOA, because we can always have our fancy technology there. But sometimes now and then, of course, because it's not practical, but now and then, if you can create those moments that matter, then grab it, because it could create a lot of difference. So when we did that, some of our employees actually posted on Facebook, and they said, I couldn't believe that the head of or the vice president for Philippine operations actually handed me personally the care package, even flying from Manila, going to Cebu and going to the traffic, because as you know, during that time there were a lot of debris, and some roads are not passable, right? And you can just go through all of those difficulties and challenges and obstacles just to bring a very modest care package. So it's not worth a lot, right? But I think what is worth a lot is the experience. And that's why bringing to life people experience is very important for us.
There's some really amazing initiatives taken by Tour Global, and I'm really, really glad you've shared those with us. Since we're coming to the closure of the session, I'll just end the third poll. So 52% do not conduct surveys at every step of their employee life cycle. Thank you for being honest, guys.
Wow.
But yeah,
Okay.
that's true. That's true. I don't think most organizations are, following surveys and polls at every step of their decision making. So that's very interesting to know. There is one question I would like to pick from chat. Um, Actually, there are two questions we can club together. As an employee too, what do you think would be the reason for you to resign? Or during your rookie days, what was your reason for leaving your company? And the second question, which can be clubbed with this, is any advice to those former employees who are losing hope to get the right career for them? So yeah, so this is more like retention, understanding why somebody leaves and how we can avoid that.
Okay, well, for me, when I was still a rookie, again, like you don't really leave the job, you leave your boss, and and it's really that like it's because it's probably because I didn't get the mentorship that I needed, or I didn't feel like a sense of belongingness, or I didn't feel a sense of pride in what I do. So like it's basically my manager not being the manager that I needed him to be during that time. So and that's why I'm very heavy on trainings, on leadership trainings. I'm very heavy on making the managers equipped with the proper tools for them to be able to handle employees the right way. Because like in the Philippines, the way right now is the traditional way, like you do this, you do that, I'm the boss, you're the employee. But it shouldn't be like that. Like here, the culture should have changed over time. And there should be the culture of why ideas. And you know what a why idea is? A why idea is basically like anything that's out of the box. Like it could be funny, it could be like you could laugh at it, but at the end of the day, it's a new concept that should be given credence in any organization. So like I feel like if you're a rookie, then the primary, and up until now, like when I consult with different organizations, the primary reason for resignation is not really that they just found a better opportunity. That's just like icing. That's not really true. There's really an internal or a deeply rooted issue in the organization that has not been fixed. And that could mean like a relationship with the manager, or not no mentorship, or no growth in the company. So always look internally. And the second question on what my advice is for those people who are losing hope in having a career, well, I'm telling you, do not lose hope. Because like I myself experienced that in my younger years. Like I always say that there's always a rainbow after the rain. And it's really true. Like I always say that failure is always a requisite to success. And by failing, and by not getting to the career that you want right now, means that you're actually getting there. Like you're on the first step. So fail fast, fail forward. Don't be afraid to go outside your comfort zone. Maybe you're not in the career that you want right now because you have not done the steps necessary to be there. I mean, have you done everything? Ask yourself the question, have you done everything already? If not, then maybe it's time for you to do it and not just wait. I remember, when I was in my college days, I was a working student and I needed a part-time job. I really went to the buildings like one by one to hand in my resume. So, so like I did everything I could to get a job. And so like if you haven't done it, do it that way. And another thing is, if you're in a position where you're uncomfortable, that's good, because it means that you have opportunities for growth. So don't lose hope, don't lose faith, because the moment you lose faith, that's the time that you fail. So just keep moving forward, and I'm sure that you can learn to improve on yourself, take certifications for the meantime, or take whatever necessary courses that you need to for that role.
Yeah, so resilience and grit, I think, is really
Yes,
important.
definitely.
Yeah.
Resilience and great. So if I may add, Arlene inspired a lot of our audience, probably even myself. I'm very much inspired by what Arlene shared with us. So again, don't lose hope. So for the first question, I think And this is, for those two questions, I will be relating or relating to it via experience, actual experience. For the first question, what made me resign when I was a rookie essentially is misalignment of values. So even without an option or an alternative job, I resigned because during that time it was perhaps financial crisis, and we're laying off a lot of our laborers. So thousands of laborers, 2,000, I think, during that period in time. And there was some sort of a scandal because for whatever reason, the payslip of one director was exposed. So for whatever reason, and it indicated there the amounts of bonuses that director got. And it was during that time, and that more than 10 years ago, you multiply that by the inflation, it was an astonishing number. I just thought that while we're laying off more than 2,000 employees and this one person getting this much money, which could have saved those 2,000 employees at least for 1 or 2 months. I think there's really a misalignment in terms of value. So even if I didn't have a job, and maybe because I was too idealistic, so and probably I had options of not being able to not being employed for a couple of months. I had that, but it created a big dissonance for me. So I left the organization because I think I won't be very happy in the next few days, and I will just be very frustrated if I would have continued in that organization. Next question, and what can I advise those people? If you are, so Smithy presented me as a global vice president for people experience. It's a long path. It's 25 years in the making, actually. So 10 years more than Arlene spent. So you know the age. So you just add a bit more to Arlene's credentials and professional history. And particularly during the pandemic, I'm not very proud of this because I lost jobs twice in the pandemic. So talk about resiliency. Where do when you suddenly get into a slump, you just have to rise. There's also a timing there, and utilize probably those few moments where you can relax, introspect, and bounce back, and be a better version of yourself. I guess that's what we're looking for in you, because there's always a right place for the right people.
Yeah, and eventually failure is imminent. You can't run away from failure. It's the ability to bounce back from that and do the right thing and turn it into a success is what really matters at the end of the day. So yeah, and with that we're at the top of the hour. We're actually over a few minutes, and we are at the point of concluding this session. I hope we could go on, and I wish I had like hours with you guys. It's been so much fun today. So thank you so much, awesome Arlene, and thank you, King Eric of the Water, for joining us today. It was amazing, and thank you, attendees. I hope it was informative. I hope the answers which were shared by Arlene and Eric were helpful to you. I hope the session was helpful to you, and uh, that's pretty much it. With that, we are concluding this session today.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much, Smitty. It's been a
everyone.
pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Smitty.
Thank you, Arlene. Thank you, Eric.